Greetings, listeners, and welcome to True Possessed Doll Stories. Before we begin, if you enjoy my content, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button. It would help me out a lot so I grow as a content creator and can continue making videos for you guys every week. Now, without further ado, relax and unwind as we scour the internet and dive deep into the depths below. One time, me and my friend were in this old antique shop and we found ourselves in this room filled with antique dolls. I'm afraid of dolls, but I tried to play it cool because I didn't want to look like a wimp in front of my friend. I'm kind of macho like that. Anyway, as we walked through the room, I noticed that the eyes of the dolls were following us. I thought that maybe I was imagining things, but then my friend told me that she had thought she had seen the dolls' eyes moving to look at us as we walked across the room. We both kind of tried to shake it off as a coincidence. Like maybe the dolls were the type that had blinking eyes, and the pressure in the room was causing the eyes to go funny. But then my friend lets out a yell, and we both noticed that a few of the dolls on the shelves had just straight up disappeared, even though they were there a few seconds ago. My friend had had enough at this point, and we both bolt out of the room, and wouldn't you know it, on the way out, are the dolls that had disappeared laying in the entrance facing toward us, as if to say, "Oh no, you can't leave from this room." And I was all like, "Oh, heck no!" And I jumped over the dolls and my friend followed my lead, and we ran out of that antique shop, never even once pausing to look back. Needless to say, I really don't enjoy dolls. Not my toy, but my neighbor's, and I was sleeping over at her house. I was about 10 and my neighbor was 9. She had a little sister who was 4 to 5-ish and had this gymnastics Dora doll. It did flips and said phrases, but after a few hours it started talking weird, and its phrases sounded something like tie you up and die. It was robot sounding, so we thought we were hearing it wrong. Several times when we were on the floor doing things, the dumb doll would do its gymnastic flips at us, and it didn't matter which way it was facing or which way we were. It was like it had a sensor. We weren't too creeped out at that point because it was supposed to get itself up and flip, but the way it always knew where we were was creepy. That night, the doll was creeping me out because it kept flipping at me. I was on an air mattress on the floor, and I asked to go up with her on the top bunk. I go up there, and seconds later it flips at the ladder, and its hands, that were straight out, got hooked on it. It went up 3 of the 5 ladder steps before falling back down. Later that week, we threw it in the basement. When I was 10, my mom kind of ran a daycare of sorts out of our house. My sister became friends with this vindictive, seemingly void of anything good, girl my mom babysat. This girl used to brag about her brother being able to make her troll dolls walk off of her dresser at night. We obviously thought she was full of it because she usually was. Her brother and his friends used to go to a graveyard that was overlooked by a cult compound at the edge of town. Anyway, one day my sister and this girl got into some kind of spat, and the girl stole one of her Barbie dolls. My sister was livid because, like most girls, she was obsessed with her Barbies. So the next time this girl comes over, she returns the doll. Only it had half of its hair cut off, and replaced with horsehair, I think? I don't really remember. But I know it was some kind of animal hair. It was sewed in. That night, around 3 a.m., my sister runs into my room screaming, "My Barbie's alive! My Barbie's alive!" We grew up in a pretty strict religious environment, where lying was met with serious punishment. Being that my sister was the least likely to lie out of us 3 siblings, I started to get freaked out. According to her, she woke up and for some reason couldn't take her eyes off of this particular Barbie. She said it stood up, stretched out like a human would after a long sleep, and turned her head to look right at my terrified sister. My sister pulled her covers back over her head, and the Barbie ran down the stairs, and that's when she came bursting into my room all frantic. I was so sure she was telling the truth that I sat at the top of our stairs with my metal Tonka truck ready to smash it if it came back up. It never did. My grandma had a doll version of me that looked exactly like me. Brown hair, hazel eyes, same colored skin. It was cool but also weird. Some of my cousins were probably jealous because I had a doll of myself and they didn't. I had my so-called own room at my grandma's house, since I would stay there a lot with my mom when she came over. I wanted to go play with my doll self, but when I opened the door to the doll room, my heart fell out of my chest. The doll was literally right in my face, like I was almost the same height as that doll that I could make clear eye contact with it. This doll was right up against my face that I didn't do anything except slam the door shut and run back to my mom. The thing was that the doll was always standing far away from the door entry, and my grandma never moved those dolls. Like ever. And that's what freaked me out the most. Nobody will probably believe me, and that's fine. My ex-stepmom gave me her beloved Furby that her mother gave her, and made me promise to take good care of it. So I did. I loved it at first, and I used to talk to it and play with it all the time. Eventually, I slowly started losing interest in playing with it, and it just sat on my dresser for months. Then one night around 2:30, about a year and a half of not touching it at all, it turned on its own and literally started screaming a loud buzzing sound at me, and it would not stop. I was kinda scared and didn't want to wake up my mom, so I picked it up and went to take the batteries out. But to my surprise, there were no batteries. The thing was empty, and it was still screaming at me. At this point, I was beyond freaked out, so I ran downstairs into the kitchen, chucked it under the sink, and slammed the cupboard door shut. It was still screaming. It took me a while to head to sleep after that, but eventually I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up hours later, I put on my glasses, and when I was just about to leave my room, my mom wasn't home, and the Furby was sitting back on my dresser where it was before, quiet.